the deals being signed behind closed doors in college football right now have NFL front offices in a state they have not been in before. For the first time in NFL history, players drafted this week in Pittsburgh are walking into the league with million-dollar endorsement portfolios already in their pockets, and in some cases are actually taking a pay cut to go pro. So let's talk about why NFL general managers across the league are sounding alarms about what's happening to their draft pipeline. Fernando Mendoza heard his name called first at the 2026 NFL Draft. The Raiders officially made Fernando Mendoza the #1 pick, a quarterback out of Indiana who won the Heisman Trophy and a national championship. Mendoza likely earned more than $1 million in NIL deals during his one season as Indiana's starting quarterback. That is not a projection. That is not a future promise. He made that money while still enrolled in college classes. The NIL tracking site On3 valued Mendoza at $2.6 million for this past season, making him the 5th most valuable college football player and the 7th most valuable overall athlete in high school or college. And the endorsements did not stop there. Mendoza already has deals with both Adidas and Hugo Boss. He showed up on draft night, watching from home in a Boss suit, not because the NFL arranged it, because his brand arranged it. Before he signed a single NFL contract, Indiana's Fernando Mendoza and Alabama's Ty Simpson were first-round draft picks, with Mendoza going #1 to the Las Vegas Raiders, and Simpson surprisingly landing with the Los Angeles Rams at #13. Mendoza's NFL rookie deal is slotted to top $57 million, including nearly $10.5 million in 2026. Simpson's contract will be roughly half that, $25.4 million total, including $4.6 million in the first year. Now, those numbers sound enormous, and they are for first-round picks. But here is where the story takes a turn that has the NFL genuinely concerned. LSU's Garrett Nussmeier and Miami's Carson Beck are projected to be the next quarterbacks selected, with both likely earning less as NFL rookies than they made as established college starters. Read that again. 2 quarterbacks who were expected to go on day 2 of the draft would earn less money in the NFL than they earned playing college football. And they were not alone. Same goes for fellow QBs Drew Aller from Penn State, Taylon Green from Arkansas, Cole Payton from North Dakota State, Sawyer Robertson from Baylor, Cade Klubnik from Clemson, Joey Aguilar from Tennessee, and others. The minimum salary for a drafted rookie in 2026 is $915,120. That sounds like a fortune to most people, but with college revenue sharing going into effect before the 2025 season, top programs are now spending up to $20.5 million on student athletes, with the majority earmarked for the most talented football players. There are undoubtedly players drafted this weekend who topped the $1 million mark last season and will earn less in the pros. Nearly half of the top 50 NIL valuations in 2025 belong to quarterbacks, according to On3, with 24 of those over $1.5 million. Philadelphia Eagles general manager Howie Roseman put it plainly. He said he might do something this weekend he has never done in his storied NFL career: draft a player who will take a pay cut by entering the league. And his words carried weight because of what they implied. The biggest issue is that, for the first time in the history of the National Football League, you're taking players who are taking pay cuts. That sentence, from one of the most powerful men in the NFL, is the kind of statement that does not get said unless something fundamental has changed. And it has. To understand why the NFL is in this position, you have to go back to what happened off the field in college sports over the last 5 years. It started with a seismic legal shift. A June 2021 Supreme Court ruling made it possible for the NCAA to adopt a policy for college athletes to benefit from their own name, image, and likeness. That was the first domino. For decades, college athletes, many of whom generated millions in revenue for their universities, were not allowed to profit from their own fame. They could not do a commercial. They could not sell an autograph. They could not put their name on a t-shirt. Then NIL came in, and the floodgates opened. But the real earthquake came with the House settlement. A House settlement last summer allows for colleges to now directly pay their athletes for the first time, creating a revenue-sharing model where athletic departments could distribute about $20.5 million in NIL revenue to their athletes during the 2025 to 2026 season. This was not just about allowing athletes to sign their own endorsement deals anymore. This was about schools themselves writing checks, substantial life-altering checks directly to their most valuable players. The combination of those two forces, independent NIL deals and institutional revenue sharing, created a financial ecosystem in college football that simply did not exist before. And it did not take long for that ecosystem to start competing directly with the NFL. For the most talented players in the country, most of the players making more than $1 million in college football are quarterbacks. That makes sense. Quarterbacks drive ratings, sell tickets, and become the faces of their programs. So when schools are deciding where to allocate that $20.5 million revenue share, the starting quarterback typically sits at the top of the list. And when NIL collectives and corporate sponsors are looking to invest, they are writing the biggest checks to the signal callers who appear on national television every Saturday. The ramifications of this new financial landscape are sprawling and multifaceted. In the NBA, the 2025 NBA draft saw the lowest number of early entrant candidates in about 10 years, with more than a dozen other high-potential candidates withdrawing at the deadline. Basketball analysts attributed the dip in part to the growing appeal of NIL. If that pattern was showing up in basketball, the sport where the earnings gap between college and the pros was already smaller, it was only a matter of time before it crashed into football with devastating force. And that is precisely what the 2026 NFL Draft demonstrated. The landscape has been fundamentally altered in ways that are forcing NFL teams to rethink how they build their rosters, how they evaluate talent, and how they think about the very concept of a prospect. The days when a college player could not wait to declare for the draft and get that first professional paycheck are fading. In their place is a calculated, financially sophisticated generation of athletes who are running cost-benefit analyses on their own careers, and in some high-profile cases, deciding that the NFL can wait. The rookie salary scale, which was designed to cap how much money teams spend on unproven players, has inadvertently created a scenario where mid to late round draft picks are sometimes worth less than what those same players could make by staying in school for one more year. If a player thinks an extra year might improve their chances of getting into the first round, and if they can get paid close to $1 million in the interim, staying in school suddenly looks more attractive. And if you're a day 3 guy or a fringe prospect in the first place, it's a no-brainer to take the paycheck being guaranteed to you in January over the possibility of hearing your name called in April. That dynamic created a ripple effect that was felt throughout the entire 2026 draft class. And it started with a decision that shocked the football world back in January. In early January 2026, with the college football season freshly concluded, one name dominated every mock draft conversation: Dante Moore, the 20-year-old Oregon quarterback who had just completed a spectacular first season as a starter. Moore completed nearly 72% of his throws for 3,565 yards, with 30 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. Oregon finished 13-2. Every major draft analyst had Moore pegged as a top 5 pick. Fox Sports NFL draft expert Rob Rang ranked Moore as his second-best quarterback in the class, joining Indiana's Fernando Mendoza as the only quarterback prospect he gave a first-round grade. Rang also had the New York Jets selecting Moore with the second overall pick in his most recent mock draft. The money waiting for him was staggering. By going back to Oregon, Moore gave up a chance to make nearly $50 million in guaranteed money. Last year's number 2 pick, Travis Hunter, made $46.65 million fully guaranteed, and that number projects to go up this year. And then on the final day before the declaration deadline, Moore went on ESPN SportsCenter and announced he was staying at Oregon. The football world was stunned. It cannot be understated how rare it is for a player like Moore, a surefire first-round quarterback without any glaring red flags on his resume, to decline the call of the league. Even in the age of the rookie wage scale, it has been unheard of for a player to forego tens of millions of dollars in order to return for another year of college. The opportunity to start collecting an NFL check was too great, and the risks that came with returning to school were too high. But Moore did it anyway, and the reasons why are where this story gets fascinating, multi-layered, and ominous for the NFL. CBS Sports reported that the Ducks and Moore's camp had been working through what Moore's NIL and revenue share allotment would look like should he return to school, as well as an insurance policy in the event Moore suffers a serious injury in 2026. In other words, Oregon was not just asking Moore to come back out of school spirit. They were offering him a financial package, complete with injury insurance, that made returning a viable economic decision. Reports indicated that Moore could earn up to $7.5 million in NIL money by staying in school. That is less than what a top 5 pick would earn. Yes, but it is not nothing. It is generational wealth for a 20-year-old, and it came with the prospect of entering the 2027 draft class as a more polished, more experienced quarterback who had another full season of development under his belt. The risk-reward calculus has entirely changed in the NIL era. That single sentence, written by analysts at The Ringer, encapsulates what is happening. A decade ago, the only way a college player could protect his future earnings was to take out a multi-million-dollar insurance policy. And even that was shaky ground. Now, a player can get paid millions while still in school, develop his game, improve his draft stock, and enter the league when he is ready. Not when financial desperation forces him to. And Moore was not the only one. In the 2026 NFL draft cycle, Moore, Lenoris Sellers, and Arch Manning all decided to return to school. 3 potential first-round quarterbacks chose college over the pros. 3 future franchise quarterbacks looked at the NFL and said, not yet. That left the 2026 class thin at the most important position in sports, and it forced teams to scramble. But there is a flip side to this coin, and it is just as troubling for the league. Because while Moore's story is one of a player choosing to stay in school and succeeding financially, the draft was also littered with cautionary tales of players who stayed an extra year and watched their stock plummet. One of the best examples came with Garrett Nussmeier, who decided to return to LSU for one last season. After his first season as a starter, Nussmeier could have potentially heard his name called in the first round of the 2025 NFL Draft. Instead, LSU went all in around Nussmeier, giving the Tigers championship hopes and a chance for him to solidify his stock as a first-round pick. It did not work out. Before his season even started, he suffered an injury that Brian Kelly tried to undersell. The LSU star never looked like the player we saw in 2024, before he was eventually held out. The result: the Kansas City Chiefs selected Garrett Nussmeier with the number 249 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, from potential first-rounder to the 249th pick. That is the other side of the NIL gamble, and it is precisely the kind of outcome that makes this entire ecosystem so volatile and unpredictable. The panic inside NFL front offices. The general managers of NFL teams are not known for showing their cards. They speak in careful, measured sentences at press conferences. They deflect, they redirect. So when multiple GMs started openly discussing their concern about what NIL is doing to the draft pipeline, during the 2026 draft week, it sent a clear signal. This is no longer a future problem. It is a present crisis. San Francisco 49ers general manager John Lynch was among the most blunt. He said, "You're seeing a lot more 25-year-old rookies." He continued that it is the opportunity for these guys to stay and make good money, doing what they are doing. Then he added something that should make every NFL owner sit up and take notice. Lynch pointed out the NFL is now in competition with college, rather than functioning as the promised land. Think about that for a moment. For the entirety of football history, the NFL was the destination. It was the goal. It was the light at the end of the tunnel for every college player who dreamed of playing at the highest level. And now, one of the league's most respected general managers is saying publicly that the NFL is in competition with college football for its own future players. Baltimore Ravens general manager Eric DeCosta put numbers to the concern. DeCosta said this is the 3rd consecutive year in which 18% of the team's draft board is comprised of players at least 24 years old. That might not sound alarming at first until you hear the context. That number used to be 4%. It went from 4% to 18% in just a few years. The COVID-19 pandemic caused the initial age surge, but soaring NIL payments and revenue share could be the deciding force for years to come. DeCosta did not mince words about what this means for his team's approach. "I don't think it's a good thing, certainly, but historically we've tried to draft younger players when we can." And then came the acknowledgement that the Ravens, and by extension every team in the league, are going to have to fundamentally adjust how they target and evaluate players. The age issue is not merely a philosophical concern. It has concrete, practical implications for roster construction. Older rookies affect team-building strategies. A 25-year-old may be more likely to get injured because he has more wear and tear on his body during that first contract. NFL coaches may also be less able to mold a 25-year-old than a 21-year-old. When you draft a 21-year-old, You are getting 4 years of a rookie contract, where that player is still ascending, still growing, still getting better. When you draft a 25-year-old, you are getting a player who might be closer to his ceiling, with more mileage on his body, and less time before you have to make an expensive decision about whether to extend his contract. After the unicorn talents are taken, perhaps the current trend is that NFL teams would prefer the player they are very confident will be a B offensive tackle this season, but will likely never be an A, as opposed to the youngster that will be a C now, but could turn into an A over time. If that trend holds, it represents a seismic shift in how the draft functions. Teams would essentially be paying for proven college production, rather than raw potential, which sounds logical until you realize it means the draft is becoming less about finding diamonds in the rough, and more about selecting pre-made products. That changes everything about scouting, everything about development, and everything about the financial calculus of building a championship roster. Las Vegas Raiders general manager John Spytek offered a different perspective on the character implications. He said they come in almost like pros now. He explained that he actually thinks it has made evaluation easier, because you can see what the guys are going to do when they have money. You know, the ones that love the game and are about the right things. And just because they've got more money than we all had when we were in college, they still prepare the right way. They play the right way. They love the game. They're there for their teammates. I think it's kind of been a little bit illuminating to the character of who they are. That is a notably optimistic spin in a room full of worried executives. But even Spytek's positive framing contains an implicit admission. The players entering the NFL now are fundamentally different from the players who entered even 5 years ago. They arrive with wealth, with brand awareness, with business acumen, and with an understanding of their own market value that previous generations simply did not possess. Former NFL agent Ben Dogra, who has represented some of the biggest names in the sport's history, laid out the stark reality with a cautionary tale. He cited Quinn Ewers, the former Texas quarterback, who reportedly turned down NIL deals worth up to $8 million to stay in college. When he entered the 2025 draft, Ewers was drafted in the 7th round of the 2025 NFL draft and signed a 4-year, $4.3 million contract. He took nearly half the money he could have made in 1 year of college, spread across 4 years in the pros, and the financial hit was only part of it. Dogra warned, in 4 years, he might be out of the league, because you don't get the same amount of chances as a late-round pick. First-round picks get every opportunity to succeed, because the general manager's reputation is tied to making that pick work. Late-round picks, they are expendable from the moment they arrive. So where does all of this leave us? The 2026 NFL Draft just wrapped in Pittsburgh, with teams making a total of 257 picks over the course of 7 rounds, and the landscape of professional football has been permanently altered by what happened in college dorm rooms, boardrooms, and behind closed doors. Over the last 2 years, the salary scale tells part of the story. Between 2020 and 2024, the value of the number 1 pick's contract went up from $36 million to $39 million. In 2025, it jumped up to $48 million, and now it's at $54 million. That is not a gradual increase, that is an explosion. And the widely held belief is that NIL played a major role in the rookie contract scale increasing as much as it has. The NFL had to raise its prices to remain competitive with what college programs were offering their best players. But the escalation of rookie contracts only solves the problem at the very top of the draft. The 32nd pick in the NFL draft gets a $16 million contract. The 64th pick's deal is worth less than $8 million. For the vast majority of drafted players, the ones selected in rounds 2 through 7, the financial incentive to leave college has narrowed or, in some cases, reversed entirely. That creates a troubling dynamic where the richest teams in the world's most lucrative sports league are losing a bidding war to universities. The specific results of the 2026 draft illustrated how dramatically the board has shifted. Round 1 was all about protecting the quarterback. While none of the first 8 picks were quarterbacks, 9 offensive linemen heard their names called among the first 32 selections, starting with Utah's Spencer Fano going to the Browns at number 9. All in all, 7 tackles and 2 interior linemen went on night 1. The draft prioritized the trenches precisely because the quarterback class had been gutted by players choosing to stay in school. The Cardinals made Jeremiah Love the highest drafted running back since Saquon Barkley and the Titans surprised by taking Carnell Tate at number 4. Meanwhile, Alabama's Ty Simpson was the only quarterback besides Mendoza to go in the first round, and even his selection at number 13 by the Rams was considered a surprise. Ty Simpson's story, in particular, captures the duality of this new era. Simpson did not have to enter the NFL draft in 2026. The Alabama quarterback had a year of college eligibility remaining, but after the 2025 season declared for the draft, and the financial math was not clearly in his favor. Based on the NIL amount Simpson recently said he could have received from the Miami Hurricanes in 2026, he is likely going to be making less as an NFL rookie than he could have in the NCAA. Simpson chose the NFL anyway, making a multi-year calculation that getting into the league sooner, even at a lower immediate salary, was the smarter long-term play. But every player who makes that choice reinforces a new principle that would have been unthinkable just 5 years ago. Entering the NFL is no longer an automatic financial upgrade. Staying in college for as much time as possible is something that many college stars are now weighing more heavily with their ability to make millions more in NIL. In fact, many of the 2026 draft quarterbacks exhausted all of their college eligibility before going to the NFL, including Beck, Nussmeier, Allar, Cole Payton, and Taylor Green. The league is watching Dante Moore's upcoming 2026 college season with enormous interest. If Moore has a monster year at Oregon, wins the Heisman, leads the Ducks to a national championship, and enters the 2027 draft as the consensus number 1 pick, then his decision to turn down $50 million will be validated as the blueprint for the next generation of elite college quarterbacks. As Moore continues to grow, not only can he lead Oregon's offense to success, but he can also become the number 1 overall pick in the 2027 NFL draft. And if that happens, every top prospect in America will think twice before declaring early. The NFL is reacting in real time. The league already scheduled an NFL record 9 international games for 2026, including its first ever game in Brazil, signaling its intention to grow revenue and stay ahead of the curve. Teams made aggressive trades during draft weekend. The Bengals sent the number 10 overall pick to the Giants for 3-time Pro Bowl defensive tackle Dexter Lawrence, and the Rams parted with the number 29 overall pick and multiple other selections in exchange for cornerback Trent McDuffie from the Chiefs. The message was clear. When you cannot guarantee the quality of incoming rookies, you trade for proven veterans. But the larger trend is unmistakable, and for the NFL, deeply unsettling. The sport's traditional model, where college football served as a free developmental league, and the draft was the moment players finally got paid, is crumbling. In its place is a competitive marketplace, where 20-year-old quarterbacks have agents, endorsement portfolios, revenue-sharing agreements, and the leverage to tell a $10 billion league, "We are not ready for you yet." As Mel Kiper Jr. observed when discussing Moore's decision, "You're getting paid to play college football, so why not stay and use that as kind of a minor league?" That is the quiet part said out loud. College football is becoming a paid developmental league, one that the NFL does not control, does not profit from, and increasingly cannot compete with for the hearts, minds, and signatures of the game's best young players. The deals being signed in college football right now are not really secret, but the full scope of what they represent and how profoundly they are reshaping the NFL is something the league is only beginning to understand. And based on what we heard from every general manager this week, the NFL has not figured out its answer yet.